when I don't love. Yeah, when I don't love me. Yeah, yeah.
Help, 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 help. I've given too much of myself. I'm way too in love with this girl. Help, 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 help. I'm smiling when I should be crying. I'm trapped in a hell, but I couldn't tell. Help. I could be anywhere else in this world, but I'm here with you and nobody else because I need you and nobody else. I only see you and no other girl. Rather be used by you, but it's a lose-lose. Me being here is not helping me. I can't help myself. Help. Yo, how did it get like this? Help. I never saw her coming. Well, I guess I did. Help. There's no way that she's right for me if I'm left like this. Help. It's like I love that she lies to me. What type of life is this? Help.
All right, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Yeah, and let's be real for a second. This thing is massive. It's basically a global plan for a better future, right? I mean, they're trying to tackle everything from poverty all the way to climate change in this thing. But how do you even begin to understand something this big?
Well, it's like, imagine this huge toolbox, and it's filled with 17 powerful tools. We call these tools the Sustainable Development Goals. Each goal is aimed at a specific problem in the world, but they're all connected.
Oh, so it's not like we're just fixing one problem at a time and then moving on to the next one. It's more like we're trying to solve all these problems at the same time. Is that right?
Exactly. That's the idea behind this whole agenda. You can't separate things like economic growth from social progress. And you can't separate those from environmental protection either. It's all connected, like interwoven, like threads in a tapestry. Okay, yeah, I think I'm starting to see the big picture a little bit. But before we look at all the individual tools in the toolbox, let's talk about this idea of leaving no one behind. Because that's like a big part of this agenda too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The agenda is really rooted in the principle of equity. That means that everybody benefits from the progress we make, not just a select few. It's about understanding that we are all connected. And to get sustainable development, we need to prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable people.
So it's like when you're building a house, you need a really strong foundation. And in this case, that foundation is global equity.
Precisely. And remember those three interconnected dimensions, the economic, social, and environmental. Think of those as like the pillars holding up that foundation of equity.
All right, so we've got our foundation and we've got our pillars. Now I'm ready to open up this toolbox and see what kind of tools we're working with here.
Great. Remember, we have those 17 goals. And to make it easier to digest, let's imagine they're grouped on 3 shelves: the people shelf, the prosperity shelf, and the planet shelf. Let's start with the people shelf.
Sounds good to me. What kind of tools are on that shelf?
Well, first up is goal number 1, end poverty. This one is about trying to end extreme poverty. People who are trying to live on less than $1.25 a day. Can you imagine trying to feed your family, pay rent, and deal with any unexpected costs on that kind of budget, especially when you consider that's just like the price of a single cup of coffee in some countries?
Yeah, that's really hard to even fathom. So goal 1 is all about lifting people out of that extreme poverty.
Yeah.
And just reducing poverty in any way we can. What else is on the people shelf?
Right next to goal 1, we have goal 2, zero hunger. The idea here is to make sure everyone in the world has enough food to eat, safe and nutritious food that they can access all year round. It's not just about giving food to people who are hungry. We also want to address the things that cause hunger in the first place, like poverty and lack of access to resources.
So we're talking about those systemic issues that create food insecurity, right?
Exactly. Now, you can't have a thriving society without healthy people, right? So that's where goal 3 comes in: good health and well-being. This goal is about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for everybody, no matter how old they are. This includes things like reducing the number of children who die and fighting those big epidemics like AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, and just making sure that everyone has access to good health care.
So goal 3 is all about making sure everyone has the chance to live a long and healthy life. Okay, what's next on this people's shelf?
Well, we also need to make sure that everybody has the knowledge and skills they need to succeed. So that's what Goal 4 is all about: quality education. Goal 4 is about giving everybody access to good education and making sure that education is inclusive and equitable. And it also emphasizes the importance of lifelong learning. Education shouldn't just stop when you finish school,
Yeah, I totally agree. Education is like the key to breaking those cycles of poverty and inequality.
It really is. And last but not least, on our people shelf, we have Goal 5. Gender equality. We need to make sure that women and girls have the same rights and opportunities as men and boys. It's about empowering women and girls and making sure that their voices are heard.
Okay, so on the people shelf, we've got tools for taking care of basic human needs, like food, health, education, and making sure everyone is treated equally. That's a pretty solid foundation for any society. But we also need a strong economy, don't we? So what can we find on that prosperity shelf?
Good transition.
Mm-hmm.
On the prosperity shelf, we have Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. So this goal is all about creating sustainable economic growth and making sure that everyone has access to decent work, a job that pays a fair wage and offers safe working conditions and provides opportunities for growth and development.
That sounds like a pretty good deal. So it's not just about economic growth for the sake of growth. It's about making sure that that growth benefits everyone.
Exactly. And to achieve that kind of growth, we need the right tools and infrastructure. So that's what Goal 9 is about: industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We need to build strong infrastructure, promote sustainable industrialization, and encourage innovation.
So investing in those systems and structures that are going to support a strong economy in the long run. But we can't forget about the planet, right? All of this is happening on planet Earth. What's on that planet shelf?
Yes, the planet shelf. This is where we get into the environmental aspects of sustainable development. Let's start with Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. It might seem pretty basic, but it's absolutely crucial. Everyone needs to have access to clean water and sanitation.
It is basic, but it's easy to forget how important those things are when you've always had them. But for billions of people around the world, access to clean water and sanitation is still a daily struggle.
Exactly, and that's why Goal 6 is so important. We need to ensure that everyone has access to those things and make sure we are managing water resources sustainably. Right next to Goal 6, we have Goal 7, affordable and clean energy. Think about all the things we need energy for: cooking, heating, lighting, powering our homes and businesses.
It's hard to imagine life without a reliable source of energy.
Absolutely. Goal 7 is all about ensuring that everyone has access to energy and that the energy we are using is affordable, reliable, sustainable, and clean. We need energy that doesn't harm the planet.
Right, so we need to think really carefully about how we are producing and consuming energy. And speaking of consumption, what about all the stuff we buy? All the products we use every day, where does that fit into this whole agenda?
That's where Goal 12 comes in, responsible consumption and production. We have to make sure we're not using up the planet's resources too quickly. Think about reducing waste, recycling more, and supporting companies that are environmentally friendly and ethical.
So being more mindful of our own consumption habits and making choices that are good for the planet.
Exactly. Now, we can't talk about the planet without talking about climate change, right?
Absolutely not. Where does that fit in?
Well, front and center, actually. Goal 13 is all about climate action. We have to do something about climate change now. We need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and we need to adapt to the changes that are already happening, and we need to help developing countries make the switch to cleaner sources of energy.
It seems like climate change is this global challenge that affects everything. So I'm not surprised it has its own goal, but it's not just about the climate, is it? We also need to protect those ecosystems that make life on Earth possible.
You're right, we do. Goals 14 and 15 focus on the oceans and the land. Goal 14, Life Below Water, is about using the oceans in a sustainable way and conserving marine resources. That means reducing pollution in the oceans, protecting marine ecosystems, and managing fisheries responsibly. Did you know even government funding can harm the oceans? When they give subsidies to fishing industries, it can actually encourage them to fish too much.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't really thought about that before. So even those little details in these goals can have big consequences.
They really can. And then there's Goal 15, Life on Land. We need to protect and restore terrestrial ecosystems. So that means things like fighting deforestation, restoring land that has been degraded, and protecting biodiversity.
Protecting the land that gives us so much. Our food, clean water, all those essential resources.
That's right.
All right, so we've looked at tools for helping people. We've seen tools for a more prosperous world. And we've got tools for protecting the planet. Is there anything else in this toolbox?
Well, you can't really achieve any of these goals without peace and justice. And we need strong institutions to make it all happen. So our final shelf in this toolbox is all about peace and partnership.
Okay, I'm excited to see what's on that shelf. I'm guessing this is where we see how the agenda brings everyone together.
Yeah.
To make this whole thing a reality.
You got it. First up on this shelf is Goal 10, reduced inequalities. The aim here is to reduce inequalities within and among countries. We need to address those income disparities. and make sure that everyone is included, social, economically, and politically. We also need to make migration and mobility of people safer and more responsible.
So we're talking about creating a world where everybody has a fair shot,
Yeah,
regardless of where they come from or what their background is.
exactly. Next up is Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. We're talking about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies here. Everyone should have access to justice, and we need institutions that are effective, accountable, and inclusive at every level. It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe and secure, where justice is served fairly, and where our institutions are transparent and work for the people.
So Goal 16 is all about laying the groundwork for peaceful and just societies, which are essential for making sustainable development possible.
Precisely. And finally, we have Goal 17, partnerships for the goals. This one is about global cooperation. We need to work together to achieve these goals. No one country can do it alone. So developed countries need to step up and provide financial assistance to developing countries.
So it's about helping those developing countries reach those goals too.
Yes, it is. And it's not just about money. We also need to share knowledge and technology and find ways to cooperate on trade. Think of it like a global brainstorming session where everyone brings their best ideas and resources to the table.
That's a great way to think about it.
Hmm?
Okay, so we've got 17 goals. That's a lot of tools in our toolbox. But I'm starting to see how they all fit together. Each one plays a crucial role.
It is a lot to take in, for sure, but this is really just the first layer of the agenda. Each of these goals also has a bunch of specific targets, outlining the specific actions we need to take. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, well, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. I'm ready to dig into those targets and uncover some of those fascinating details.
Great. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's get into some of those targets you mentioned. It's like we've opened this giant toolbox, seen all those tools, and now it's time to really get in there and figure out how they work.
Exactly. So let's start with Goal 3, good health and well-being. One of the targets here is about ending preventable deaths of newborns and children under 5. By 2030, can you imagine losing a child to something that could have been prevented?
That's just heartbreaking. No parent should ever have to go through something like that. But how does the agenda actually plan on achieving this?
Well, it sets targets for every country. Ambitious targets, but necessary ones. Imagine reducing neonatal mortality to just 12 per 1,000 live births, and under 5 mortality to just 25 per 1,000.
Wow, those numbers are powerful. It really puts things into perspective.
It does. And Goal 3 isn't just about reducing child mortality. It's about ending those big epidemics. Diseases like AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. These diseases have been devastating communities for far too long, and the agenda is determined to end them.
A world without those diseases.
Yeah.
That would be an incredible achievement.
It would. And it's not just about infectious diseases either. The agenda also tackles non-communicable diseases like heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Those are on the rise all over the world.
So it's a much more holistic approach to health, addressing all those different kinds of diseases.
That's right. And it even takes it a step further by recognizing the importance of mental health. There's a target in there to promote mental health and well-being, and to reduce premature mortality from things like behavioral disorders and developmental and neurological disorders, too.
It's great to see mental health included because that's something that's often overlooked.
I agree. And another part of Goal 3 that's interesting is the focus on universal health coverage.
Universal health coverage. What does that mean exactly?
It means that everyone, no matter who they are or where they live, has access to good quality health care. And they're also protected from financial hardship if they get sick. Can you imagine a world where nobody has to worry about going bankrupt because they got sick?
That would be amazing. So Goal 3 is really about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to be healthy, both physically and mentally.
Precisely. Now let's head over to the prosperity shelf for a bit and take a look at Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. One of the targets here is to get rid of forced labor and to put an end to modern slavery and human trafficking, and to eliminate child labor, especially the worst forms of child labor. It's a reminder that these terrible things are still happening in the 21st century.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about those things when they're not happening right in front of you.
It's true, but we can't ignore them. The agenda has a target to end all forms of child labor by 2025. Think about all those kids around the world who are being denied their childhood because they're being forced to work in dangerous conditions.
It would be huge to end child labor, a major victory for human rights.
It really would be. And Goal 8 is about more than just getting rid of those worst forms of labor. It's also about making sure that all workers have a safe and secure work environment. including migrant workers,
Yeah.
and about protecting labor rights. It's about making sure that everyone has a fair and decent job.
A job where they're treated with respect
Yeah,
and they can earn a decent living.
exactly. And there's another target under Goal 8 that I think is interesting, the focus on sustainable tourism.
Sustainable tourism, what does that actually look like?
Well, it's about creating jobs and supporting local culture and products,
Yeah.
but doing it in a way that doesn't harm the environment. Tourism can be a great way to boost the economy, but it can also have a negative impact on the environment and local communities if it's not done sustainably.
So it's all about finding that balance between economic benefits and environmental protection.
Right. Now let's head over to the planet shelf again and check out a few more of those targets.
Sounds good. What have you got for us on the planet shelf?
Well, let's start with Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. One target that really stands out to me is the one about reducing food waste. The goal is to cut global food waste in half at the retail and consumer level, and to reduce food losses along the supply chain. Did you know that we waste about 1/3 of all the food we produce globally?
1/3. That's crazy.
It is, and it's a huge waste of resources. Think about all the water, energy, and land that goes into producing that food, and then it just goes to waste. Reducing food waste would be good for people, good for the planet, and good for the economy, too.
Yeah, that's what we like to call a win-win-win.
Exactly. Another interesting target in Goal 12 is about chemicals and waste. We need to manage those things in a way that's environmentally sound throughout their entire life cycle.
Chemicals and waste, not the most glamorous topics, but they're important, right?
They are. Think about all the chemicals we use in our daily lives, in cleaning products, cosmetics, all kinds of stuff. We have to make sure those chemicals are being handled responsibly,
Okay.
that they're not harming people or the planet.
So Goal 12 is about making our whole consumption and production system more sustainable.
Exactly. From the products we buy to the way we dispose of our waste. Now let's move on to those other planet goals. Life below water and life on land. Goal 14, life below water, has a target to reduce marine pollution. By 2025, all kinds of pollution. You know those images of oceans filled with plastic? They're heartbreaking.
They are. It's scary to see the impact we're having on the planet.
It is. And the agenda goes beyond just the pollution we can see. There's also a target to address ocean acidification, which is a serious threat to marine ecosystems.
Ocean acidification, I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one.
It happens when the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And as the ocean absorbs more CO2, it becomes more acidic. And that can be really harmful to marine life, especially coral reefs and shellfish.
Wow, so that's another way that climate change is affecting the planet.
Exactly. And Goal 14 also includes targets to address overfishing. We need to manage fisheries sustainably. So that means putting an end to overfishing and to illegal and unregulated fishing and to those destructive fishing practices that harm the ecosystem.
Overfishing could really damage the oceans.
Yeah,
Wiping out entire fish populations.
it can.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at Goal 15, life on land. There's a target in there to stop deforestation and to restore forests that have been degraded. Imagine a world where we're not only protecting the forests we have, but we're also planting new trees and restoring the ones we've lost.
Forests are so important for biodiversity, for the climate, for the people who depend on them.
They are. Goal 15 also addresses desertification. You know, when fertile land turns into desert.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. It's pretty frightening.
It is, and it's often caused by human activities like deforestation and unsustainable farming practices. So the goal is to restore that degraded land and to try to achieve a world where we're not degrading the land anymore.
Reversing the damage we've done.
Exactly. And Goal 15 also emphasizes the importance of protecting biodiversity, all the different plants and animals and ecosystems that make our planet so unique.
Because everything is connected, right? We need those ecosystems.
We do. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here on the people, prosperity, and planet goals. Ready to move on to that peace and partnership shelf?
Absolutely. I'm really curious to hear more about those goals. Okay, so we've talked about those people goals, the prosperity goals, and the planet goals. Like, we've gone through this toolbox and looked at every tool in there. But now I'm really interested to hear about this last shelf, the peace and partnership goals. How do those tie everything together?
Wait, think of it like this. You could have the most amazing tools in the world, but if you're working in a chaotic environment or a place that's really unstable, you're not going to get very far. Those peace and partnership goals are about creating the conditions for sustainable development. They help make it possible for all those other goals to work.
So those goals are like the foundation, in a way.
Exactly. Let's take a look at Goal 16. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. One of the targets in this goal is to reduce violence everywhere. and to lower those death rates related to violence. So that means tackling things like homicide, armed conflict, violence against children. Imagine a world where everyone feels safe and secure. A world where there is no threat of violence.
That sounds like a beautiful world, but it also seems like a really difficult thing to achieve.
It is a huge challenge, for sure. But the agenda recognizes that peace is not just the absence of violence. It's about creating societies that are just and inclusive, where everyone has equal opportunities and access to justice. Goal 16 is also about promoting the rule of law and making sure that everyone has equal access to justice. And we need institutions that are effective and accountable and transparent.
So it's about creating a system where everyone is treated fairly, where everyone's rights are protected, and where the institutions actually work for the people.
That's exactly right. And it's important to remember that these peace and partnership goals aren't separate from all those other goals. They're all connected. For example, if we reduce poverty and inequality, that's going to make societies more peaceful and stable. And strong institutions are essential if we want to make progress on all of the goals.
It's like a giant puzzle where all the pieces fit together. Okay, what about Goal 17, partnerships for the goals? Where does that fit in?
Goal 17 is all about collaboration on a global scale. It's about recognizing that no single country can achieve these goals by itself. We need to work together, share resources, knowledge, technology. So the agenda says that developed countries need to provide financial assistance to developing countries.
To help them achieve those goals.
Exactly. And it's not just about financial aid. It's also about things like technology transfer, capacity building, trade. We need to find ways to work together.
So Goal 17 is about cooperation and shared responsibility.
Exactly.
But what about regular people like you and me? What role do we play in all of this?
That's a great question. The agenda might seem like something that only governments and big organizations need to worry about. But the truth is, it's about all of us. The choices we make every day have an impact.
So you're saying that even small changes in our own lives can make a difference?
Absolutely. Think about the things you buy, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, how you travel, the energy you use. All of those decisions have consequences. You can choose to buy products from companies that are sustainable. You can reduce your own carbon footprint by walking or biking or taking public transportation. You can get involved in your community and support organizations that are working to protect the environment or promote social justice. It's about being aware of the impact you have on the world and making choices that are aligned with the values of sustainable development.
Wow, it really puts things into perspective. This agenda is about so much more than just a document. It's a call to action for all of us.
It is. It's about realizing that we're all connected, people and the planet and prosperity. And our actions, no matter how small they might seem, can contribute to a more just and sustainable world.
Well, this has been a really amazing deep dive into the UN's 2030 agenda. We started with this huge document, and we broke it down piece by piece. We looked at the goals, the targets, how everything is connected. And I think we've both learned so much about what sustainable development really means and how we can all play a part in making it happen.
I agree. It's been a really interesting journey. And I want to leave you with one final thought. The agenda mentions this idea of Mother Earth. You know, how in many cultures around the world, people refer to the earth as their mother. It's about recognizing that the earth is our home, the source of all life. So how might that idea of the earth as our mother, how might that change how we approach these goals?
That's a really interesting question that makes you think about things differently. Instead of seeing the earth as something separate from us, we start to see ourselves as part of the earth. And if we really see the earth as our mother, wouldn't we want to treat her with more respect and care?
Exactly. Something to think about. I encourage you to keep learning about the 2030 agenda and find ways to get involved. Remember, every action counts. And together, we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It's been a pleasure. Now go out there and make a difference.
Wait till morning, 'cause joy is there to hope. Yeah, the end is now near. Please, oh please, not today. Need my peace on your way. I don't need to be swayed. Let me free, won't you, babe? Please, oh please, not today. Need my peace on your way. I don't need to be swayed. Let me free, won't you? Please, oh please, not today. Need my peace on your way. I don't need to be swayed. Let me free, won't you, babe? Please, oh please, not today. Need my peace on your way.